Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my forecast. This is my forecast for April. So interesting to see what's going to come up for us this month. The first card we get, and so I'll explain. I'm working with the Publishing Goblins Oracle Dice, and I was one of the lucky folks who got in early on the Kickstarter and also got this little deck that accompanies it. So I always pull one card for the month as well as working with the dice. And the card we have is the Maiden of Winter. And so basically, her role is to say that this month is going to be more introspective. It's a time to stop what you're doing, go within, check in with yourself to see about what you're supposed to do next. So we often think of spring as a time of new beginnings. So the new beginning this month starts with a change in mindset. So it's basically saying, especially if you feel like you don't know how to move forward, it's saying do the internal work first. Don't rush into something just because you're afraid of not taking action. A lot of times when we just go on, I'm just going to act on this because I'm afraid I'll miss out on something. It's better to be really clear about the actions you take before you take them. So it's saying this month, give yourself a little bit of time to get centered and get a sense as to what's next and see what your mental shift has you do. So you see this is a gorgeous box, beautiful die, each one created by a different artist. So definitely look for the Publishing Goblin's Oracle dice online. This is his second set. He had fewer dice in the first one. The beautiful mat that comes with it was one-sided. Now it's got two sides, although there's a particular side I like to use. The newer side is the one I tend to use the most. Uh, it just does it for me and for everybody that watches my readings, because a lot of you say that you look forward to this. I've had people say, well, I haven't seen your reading up yet, because I do it on Facebook, and then I download it and I put it on YouTube. So it will be on YouTube as well. Um, and it's just a great way of sort of feeling into what we're meant to do this month. So I'm going to drop the die, and where they land is where they land. And if they don't happen to stay on the mat, then they're not in this reading for this month. And we did have a few go flying away and one that's off the mat. So we're just going to ignore those ones. But I see that we do have the Fate die coming up, and we'll have a look at that one first, because that often is a good indicator about the spread, as well as the card that I pulled. So with the Fate die, the face that's up on it, and interestingly enough, this is really funny. Oh, hi Tanya, thanks for popping in. This is quite funny. The Fate die is sitting on the mat under Inevitable. So how apt is that? And we see there's like a little cube that's showing up there. So actually, that's the Chaos die. So, but Chaos is often about fate as well. So I do find that quite funny. Okay, and we're going to find out which one that is. Fate die is also useful for looking at right at the beginning, because sometimes it tells you to shift your die to different spots. So this literally is dice, and it says how simple it can be just to be the face of dice themselves. So it's saying, one might say this is the one face that's self-aware of its state of being. Dice does, as you might expect, grab a random die that was not rolled in this reading, and add it to the reading in place of this die. Okay, so we're going to take the one that fell off the mat, and we're going to see what it shows up as. This is what's so cool. Sometimes you drop the die and then something happens because of the die that changes the reading. And so we're going to put that one in place of the Chaos die, but under Inevitable. And I will come to that as I go through the book and see which one that is. Now, let's take a look for the Fate die. Let's see if it landed on the mat. And it might have, yeah, the Fate die is not on the mat. So the Chaos die has done the same thing as the Fate die would do. It's changed how we've used one of the dice. So that's cool. What's really interesting is this time we have four of them sitting in the core. So that's going to imply probably something of an intense reading, but we shall see. Okay, so we're going to start with the actions die. And first of all, see if it has joined us on the mat. And it might not have. I think that's one that ended up on the floor. So we don't have to worry about that one either. Or actually, we do. It's the one that was off the mat that I just shuffled to go on the mat under inevitable. And it shows a little figure in a spiral path. So we'll see what that one's about. All right. So in this reading, the die face speaks more than anything to something occurring within ourselves. So it's interesting already. It's saying go inward. It's one of the more passive faces. It usually relates to a process that's already occurring. So it says do the rest of the reading and see what's changing and to recognize that change. So in other words, the die is saying change is inevitable. Okay. And as you know, if you've had a reading from me, the decks that I work with, I just know them inside and out. I find this one so complex. I do use the book, but my mind is also putting things together into a whole picture for us so that we get a better sense as to what we're dealing with. But I highly recommend this. It's complex, it's beautiful, and it's really accurate. And a lot of folks come back to me and say how much they like the accuracy of it. The Alchemist die is showing up under Fated. And you'll see it looks like a number 4, although it's going to look backward to you. And under Fated, it's 10. So it's the wise person's medal, something that brings out the strength in other things when paired well. On its own is not so useful. Interestingly enough, it is paired with another dice. So we're going to see how those two work together when we come to it. But we'll just keep in mind for now, 10 is showing up under Fated, and it's going to lend strength to the other die that's there. We come to the alley die, and the alley die is showing up under the present, and you can see it's a little cat with a patch over one eye, as it were, or a little, like the eye is X'd out. So we'll see what that one's about. And it's called Strays. So when you see this die in a reading, it speaks to those abandoned by the world system, or could be used specifically. It means things that have been abandoned or lost. You must recognize what's been left behind in your actions in your haste to enact change. So it's interesting that this month is about introspection, and it's showing up in the present. So it's basically saying, what did you miss? What did you leave behind? In making this shift that is happening right now, what might you have to go back and look at, recognize, and bring forward with you, or at least acknowledge that it's something that you've sacrificed or left behind in the process? So that's showing up under the present. And now we come to the attentions die, and it's showing up under momentum as, see how it says neon? So with this one, it's saying it's an attention hog. It draws your eye. It offers little in return other than being lovely to behold. So the way I'm interpreting it here is there's a lot of introspection happening this month. But as you're moving forward, hi, Lynn. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I appreciate it. As you're moving forward, don't let yourself get distracted by something that might look maybe lucrative for you, or something that makes you feel special, but it doesn't actually offer you anything substantial. So as you're doing this inner work, if something comes your way, examine it carefully. Make sure it's not a distraction from this inner work that you need to do. The autumn's die. Where is our autumn's die? If it's even on the mat. Because it might have been another one that decided not to join us today and end up on the floor instead. And I think that's exactly what it's done. So we get to skip that one too. Okay, we've done the chaos die already. the elements die. So this one shows up in the past. You'll see what looks like a leaf. And it's earth. So it speaks to the foundations in the world, need to reconnect to nature, spend time outside. It's showing up in the past basically to say, and if you remember from previous months, we've done a lot of work to build our foundation. So it's saying you've built the foundation now, trust that and keep building on that and moving forward. Okay, the fate die didn't show up on the mat, so we can skip that. The goblin die. This is always one of my favorites because the goblins are so cute. But today we don't get a goblin. It's also showing up in the past. We get what looks like a little gear. And it says manufacturing. So it speaks to the movement to making a thing real. So we often imagine possibilities into our lives, but the hard work forward to make it real, the actual change, is to do the thing. It's showing up in the past, again, to say you laid the foundation, you did the work, now trust that. In other words, don't keep going back to the past to justify anything now or to distract yourself. This time, this month of inner contemplation isn't about reinventing the wheel or focusing so much on the past you lose your energy and focus to move forward. It's more about going, this is what I learned from the past, and this is how I want to apply this going forward. The meditation is forward thinking this month, okay? All right, the influences die. And that one shows up also under fated, but not next to the tin one. So that's not a direct reflection. And we see this swirl. And this one is arcane. For those initiated, can be magic, ritual, or omen. It can be important to remember rituals not reserved only for magic practice or religion. So it's something that requires study or a guide to travel through. So again, it's about that deep inner work. It's saying what's fated here is the universe is going to draw you back into yourself, going to get you to study your situation and get clear on it as part of your moving forward. So again, don't shirk the work. This is time for inner work, time to do this. Think of it as planting the seeds that will bloom as the year continues. The kindness die also shows up in the present. And what we have here is a heart with an arrow through it. And so it says, it's the face of feeling love. It's acknowledging that the heart is struck. Life is good. Something is driving a consistent production of good brain chemicals. So it's basically saying, lovingly look at, remember this one, whatever it is you seem to have left behind. Is there something you have to go back or someone you have to go back to? And maybe create a kinder interaction. Tie up those loose ends gently so you have that energy freed up to move forward. Or it might just be having compassion for someone you've had to leave behind because maybe they're not your reflection anymore. Maybe there's been a falling out simply because you're not both heading in the same direction. It's an opportunity to free up your energy to move forward by not harboring resentment, by thinking compassionately of that person. They're going through their own struggle. They're on their own path. So see if you can think about that in more compassionate terms as you go forward. The longings die. Okay. And this one also shows up under the past. We've got this little figure kind of hugging the world from the looks of it. It says held tight. It's a need to stop all motion and simply rock in place in someone's arms. It can be read as a need for a break, as a need to relinquish control, as a need to be taken care of. All of these are true. And again, it's showing up in the past. So it might very well be in the past, you needed to be nurtured. You needed to be supported. You needed to take a break. It's showing up in the past because it's saying you've been through that. Now it's time to apply your energy going forward to take responsibility for yourself by doing that inner contemplation to prepare you for the next stage. So it's saying, Again, don't get stuck in that. I never got the nurturing I wanted. I didn't get treated the way I wanted. That's a victim's game. It'll never lead you forward. It'll never get you where you need to go. So if you find yourself going, well, I had it rough, and because I had it rough, blah, 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 I would say instead, what you want to say is, these were my experiences. This is what I learned from them. And this is what I'm going to do to apply those lessons going forward. That takes you out of victim mode. You can't change the past. We can't change how our parents raised us or how our partners in the past were toward us. All we can do is look at, what did I glean from that? What did I learn? How did I grow as a result? And how do I want to apply that growth going forward? Then you're not stuck. Then you're not a victim, because you took what you learned and you turned it into an opportunity. Okay, going from that, we go to the Major's die. And the Major's die is in the core. And it looks like this. So we're going to look that one up. And it is order. So when it turns up at the core, it views each of the quadrants of the reading to be a unique space and would like you to read them as such as well. Each quadrant speaks to a different part of the larger question, but the quarters do not speak to one another directly. And I think we're actually seeing this. Like, the past is very much, leave it in the past, don't bring it forward. The present is lovingly look at what you're letting go of or who you're letting go of, and see if there's any loose ends you need to clean up there in order to move forward. So far, there's only one sitting in the future, and that's the neon one, this little dude right here, saying don't get distracted by shiny things. Don't get distracted from your path by something that's not a reflection of it, something that might make your ego feel good but isn't really going to do anything for you. And then under fated, it's very much the inner work, the study, and the introspection that's required in order for you to move forward. And saying that work's got to be done. It's fated, so you might as well do it. That's the thing I like about fated. It kind of lets you know, well, this is inevitable, so you might as well do this. It's like I often say to my clients, if they're dealing with, say, a difficult career situation or job, or a relationship, I should say, I'll say, your soul came here to do this work. So whether or not these other things in your life work out or cooperate with you, it's your work to do. You might as well do it. You're going to have to do it sooner or later. You might as well do it in this life and not have to carry it into the next life and carry that karma as well. The Mariner's die. Okay, it's showing up under foundation, and it is the compass. So the compass is basically saying it's this skill set needed to use this tool is of utmost importance to this phase. Knowing how to set your course and to set your goals is what is being spoken about here. And it makes sense. It's the foundation. You're laying the foundation. Remember how I said you want to take what has happened in the past and say, what did I learn from that? How do I want to apply those lessons going forward? That is what this is all about. Lay the foundation for the changes you want to make by taking what you learned from the past and bringing it forward. Take that energy and that focus to create the life you want now. And by the way, on my YouTube channel, I have a whole podcast series on setting goals that you'll probably find some very interesting things in there. Okay, that's the Mariner's die. The Metamorphosis die is also sitting in the core. And it might be really hard to see this one, but it's a butterfly leaving its chrysalis. Hi, Karen. I sure appreciate you guys jumping in and saying hello. Thanks for being here. Okay, so let's look at that one as a core reading. It sometimes speaks to being on the eve of a flight or the yearning for it. In other cases where the reading might show concern or worry, it might even speak to the fear of exiting the chrysalis stage and being known by the world. It's focusing on that moment of exposure. So it's interesting it's showing up in the core because, in a sense, this month we are in the chrysalis. We are preparing to emerge from it. And this is saying there's an emerging process that's also going to occur this month. So you're doing the inner work and then you're stepping out, likely into the unknown. That can be really scary, but that's okay. We all have to do that. In fact, in a month's time, my husband and I are moving to Nanaimo. So just so all of you know, if you haven't been watching some of my social media and stuff like that, we are going to be leaving. We'll be back from time to time, and I'll continue to serve this community, by Zoom. And, I'll let you know when I do come into town if you want to see me in person. Hi, Arlene. So, a lot of you are aware that that move is occurring, and it's very much about setting goals and stepping into the unknown. And it's interesting that once you do, the universe starts putting things in front of you to say, yes, you're going in the right direction. The things that have fallen into place for us are amazing. The home we're moving into, I already have an office in downtown Nanaimo. Starting in May, I'm in the Heritage Muse area. Um, I already attended a psychic fair in Victoria. I've got one lined up in Nanaimo the day after we move in, another one 2 weeks later in Sydney, BC. The one I was at in Victoria, I'm going back to theirs in October. There's just all this stuff being generated that says, yes, you're moving in the right direction. So bear that in mind. There will be an internal working on your stuff so you can shift, but then the shift has to become action. Otherwise, you just get stuck where you are. And action is sometimes scary. So acknowledge the fear if you're stepping into the unknown, and then do it anyway, right? So that you're not letting your past make you live a smaller life than you were meant to have. Don't let the past win, right? Don't be a victim to the past. Learn what you can from it and apply it going forward. Okay, that was the chrysalis one. Now we're going to go to the obstacles die. And the obstacles die is where? I'm not sure it's on the mat either. Interesting how many just oh, no, it is here. It's just looks a little bit different than the color of the print in the book. It's right smack dab in the middle of the core. And it looks like a clock. And it says, yet to come, which is what the dice is called, in the core of reading is founded on time. The reading's about the confluence of events and how they line up or don't, and what the fallout may be as a result. So again, it's all about, this is a process that's occurring. It's internal. It's going to become externalized. It's a series of events. So again, makes perfect sense. All right. The relationships die shows up under fated, and it is the self die. And so it is the one next to the tin one. And it's basically saying it means the self wherever it lands, and other dice and readings outside of the self, it's all related. So when I see it there, it's saying you have a lot of strength coming up to study, to do that internal work, to work on yourself. So even if things get hard at times, or it's uncomfortable to sit still with yourself and do that inner work, trust you have the strength for that. The universe is giving you the strength this month to go inward, do that work you need to do, and then from there, take the action you need to take. So the strength is there. Okay, the spring die, it shows up under the past, and it's a little jester's hat. And it's saying it's the Fool of the Tarot. It speaks of starting new journeys, but doing so without wisdom, knowledge, or awareness. So it could be a warning about taking a fall from not thinking the situation through enough before taking that leap. So it's showing up in the past. And again, it's that message, don't be reactive because of your past. If you have to deal with people from your past, maybe it's family members that drive you crazy. Maybe it's you find yourself repeating your dating patterns or your career patterns. You keep ending up in the same boat. Don't be reactive. Say, what's repeating here? And how do I change how I look at this and how I respond? It's interesting. My husband and I have been watching a lot of videos, a lot of podcasts on Stoics and their philosophy. And there's a term they use, amor fati, love your fate. Again, we can complain about the past, we can be miserable about it, or we can say, I love this because I'm learning from it. I'm growing because of this. Therefore, it's a good thing. Imagine if you took everything that ever happened to you, instead of being angry about it or miserable about it, you said instead, I love this, meant to be, I meant to learn from this. What's the lesson? And how do I use that to move forward? Then everything is fuel for the fire. Nothing holds you back. Nothing can hold you back unless you let it. Don't give anything or anyone that power. Okay, the suits die. The suits die falls under history, just outside of the past. You see, it looks like a goblet. So it's cups, obviously, suits die. And it says, anything can fill this cup. Emotions are manifold, but especially are those that come through intensely. So it's saying basically check your emotions. It's sitting under history. Don't let your emotions around your history run the show. If you've been watching me for the last several months, you've seen a real progress in terms of dealing with the past, working through the patterns, moving forward. This one is very clear now. You've dealt with the past. Don't let emotional material from the past feed the present or the future. It's being very clear. You've done that work over the last several months with me. It's now time to leave that alone, reconfigure in your mind what you can learn from it, and then stop thinking about the past. Take that energy so you can move forward with it. So every time you start thinking about, well, so-and-so did such and such to me, or this was awful, stop. Amor fati. What do I love about this? What am I learning from this that I can carry forward? Take all of your focus on the direction you're taking, because you need the energy to take steps forward in a new direction, to step into the unknown. If you're focused on the past, it's robbing you of that energy. Don't let anybody have that power over you. Okay, the summer's die is also not on the mat. Okay. And I know we missed one because I do have one sitting there that I think the color they used for that dice is so different that I might have missed it. Let's have a close look for that one. Make sure we catch everything. Wasn't the goblin die? Huh. That is interesting. This one just seems to get me every time because it's a different kind of color. Oh, hold on. I haven't gotten to it yet. It's one of the new ones. It comes after the one I'm about to look at. So we're at the winter die. The winter die is in Beyond, and it's an eye that's crying. Hi, Maureen. Aw, thank you for being here. So it's Beyond Fated. So we're going to see what that one is about. And it's the sorrow one. So it's basically saying sorrow is a constant. It's inescapable. And some of you may have heard me say this before. Don't choose a life that's focused on happiness, because there's going to be times you're going to be unhappy. And then you're going to be, hi Jeanette, and then you're going to be more unhappy because you were focusing on becoming happy. Instead, think of having a life of meaning. If your life is about meaning, you can endure the unhappy stuff because it's meaningful. I can do this because I know what my goals are. I know what's important to me. I know the kind of person I want to be, and I know there's going to be hardship in the universe honing those qualities in me. So sorrow is going to be part of the story. If you're fighting that, something that's inevitable, you're actually adding pain to your pain. You're making things worse than they need to be. Part of saying amor fati is even when you are unhappy, even when things are hard, you're still able to love your fate because you know it's helping you grow. You know it's making you a better person. It's bringing up awareness you would never have if everything was always hunky-dory. So keep that in mind. And the last one, also in the core, is the wounds die. And what we see here is a hand that looks like it has a little wound on it. And excuse me, gotta have a little sip of something here. Okay, and it's the scar. And so in the core, it often deals with past issues that have not gone away, that rise again sometime later to have lasting impacts. Be aware of where the cut came from, as well as what happened around its healing. Both of these elements are central to understanding what the scar truly is and how it came to be what it is now. So think about that. Something comes up, you're triggered by somebody. Okay, where'd the wound come from? Sometimes what triggers you now has to do with a core pattern triggered from something that happened when you were a little kid. And a lot of times, for those of you who've worked with me, I tune in to your core patterns. So I'm able to say this current situation is actually related to something that happened in early childhood. And I help you actually access the part of your subconscious still stuck in that pattern, help it to become conscious so that it can realize I'm in an adult body now. I have choices I didn't have. I don't have to keep running this pattern. And when the core pattern is dealt with, it doesn't get triggered so much in the adult consciousness. You're getting better able in those situations to go, I know where the wound came from, and I know what I've been doing to help it heal. So that instead of focusing on what went wrong and why, and the fact that you're really upset about it, instead you're able to go, I've been here before. I've grown because of it. I'm going to keep growing because now I know what happened and how I got through it. And if you're working with that inner child, if you're helping them, if you're basically helping them to feel loved, supported, heard, and seen, and they become conscious that that's how they're being treated, it's going to enable them. It's going to change them. They're not going to be stuck in that pattern. It's going to get easier to go, I've been there. I've learned from it. I'm growing. It's an old scar. It's no longer a wound. It no longer holds power over me. So this is the crux of today's forecast. In this month, there's going to be introspection. The work to do internally is inevitable, so you might as well do it. You're going to let go of the past. It's only useful in terms of going, I recognize where the wounds came from. I know what I'm learning from them. I'm prepared to go forward. Don't get caught up in things that are a distraction from this, that are just there to make your ego feel good. It's not useful. Look at what you need to leave behind, lovingly clean up those loose ends to prepare you energetically to move forward. But as you can see, a lot of this is internal this month to free up your energy to externalize later on. But this month is internal. I'll post this for any of you who just popped in and are just catching the tail end. And I will find some time in the next little while to come in and do my mini readings. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Happy April Fool's Day, and no April Fooling here. This is the real thing. But again, just a reminder that I will be here. We're leaving in May, but the first weekend of May, I will still be operating out of my office. So if you're looking for sessions in person in Kelowna, I'm around all April. I've got office time booked for the first weekend of May before we take off on our move. We will be coming back from time to time, but I'm absolutely available to you 7 days and evenings a week on Zoom. So don't worry, I'm still going to take care of my Kelowna folks, even though I'll be living on the island. I love you all. Mwah. Have a wonderful April, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.